Welcome back to Buffalo Sports Insider, the most electric podcast in the 716. Today we have a lot to cover. We got the Bills game, we got the NFL as a whole, we got some MLB news, WNBA news, the U.S. Open for tennis. A lot of things happened over this last week. For football, for the Bills, we got my friend Thomas Bailey, Caleb Babula, and Michelle Morocco to talk about the Bills. The Bills had an exciting 34-28 win over the Arizona Cardinals on Sunday. Josh Allen was the star of the show with 271 total yards, 4 touchdowns, and a passer rating of 137.7. Michelle, what were your thoughts on his performance?
So in the beginning, we had a little bit of a slow start with that fumble off the opening drive, and the time of the possession with the Cardinals had about 20 minutes when we had only about 10. But we really rallied in the second half, and like you said, Josh Allen had 271 total yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and 2 rushing touchdowns. I was really excited to see Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir be part of some of those catches there, and James Cook with about, I think, 19 or 20 carries he had. But Allen really took control and showed us what he could do on the field after that second half. With his throwing, he had a couple rushes himself and that touchdown.
Yeah, and he also had a very nice touchdown where he hurdled over Pro Bowl defender Budda Baker, but on that play, he injured his left hand, non-throwing hand, so it wasn't too serious. Are you worried about this injury at all?
I'm not too worried. He did fall like right on his hand was under his elbow, so there was a little impact there, but he did do an interview where he said he's all good. He's just going to wear a glove and hope for the best, but he's clear to play in Miami, so there's nothing to be too scared about there.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the Bills did come out this game slow. They were losing 17-3 at one point. Thomas, what was your thought on this bad start?
I mean, of course, it didn't look too great. Me and Alex, of course, we were at the game, but very tough start for the Buffalo offense. They couldn't really get much going. Obviously, they got very good field position to start with the Cordington kickoff return into plus territory. Looking very good as well until the Josh Allen fumble there. He's just trying to do too much on that play. Be safe, be conservative in that situation, throw the ball away. At that point, it was only 3-0. I mean, you just gotta play safer in that situation. I understand he's an aggressive quarterback, but it's 1st and 10. Just take the throw outside and just move on, move to the next play. A couple other things that this team didn't do well is the rush defense. The rookies, Dwayne Carter, obviously didn't look too great in his debut. Daquan Jones was just too aggressive up the middle and stuff there. The D-line did not look that great outside of Rousseau and Miller, so that's definitely a concern for week 2. Dorian Williams was lost in coverage in the linebacking game, just couldn't do much. And after the Teron Johnson injury to his forearm, Cam Lewis did step in and play decent, but the pass defense was kind of lacking. Marvin Harrison was left open several times. If Murray would have found him, we were talking about potentially a different outcome of this football game. So Buffalo's got to be a little bit better in that regard in week 2 when they're playing Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So very bad start, but they've moved on, and, of course, we got the win in the end.
Yes, as you mentioned, Greg Rousseau was one of the bright spots in this defense. He was just announced AFC Defensive Player of the Year, or Defensive Player of the Week with 6 tackles, 3 sacks, and a forced fumble. He really took over this game in the second half as the Bills did rally to come from behind and win this game. Caleb, what were your thoughts on Greg Rousseau and some of the other stars of the game?
So to start off with Greg Rousseau, 3-sack game, the first time in his career, and it's the most sacks ever by a Buffalo Bills player in the opener. So just a wonderful performance from him. Von Miller, also outstanding, had a sack, and that's something he did not do last year. He just did not rush the passer well, didn't really do anything well. So 11 pass rush win rate for Von Miller and 6 for Greg Rousseau. It was really refreshing to see. And on the other side of the trenches, this wonderful play from the tackles of Deion Dawkins and Spencer Brown. 31 for 31 on pass blocking reps. It's good as it gets. 100% pass block win rate. And it really set the tone for the team to start running the ball a little bit better in the second half and just getting a little bit more tempo and incorporating all the backs. So a really good, well-rounded game on the offensive side. The defensive side, you'd like to see the run defense be better to start off the game. It's been a common trend with the Buffalo Bills. They just simply do not defend the run ball in the first, but they've gotten much better as time's gone on.
Yes, and as you mentioned, Spencer Brown, he signed a 4-year deal last week. The details just came out yesterday. $72 million, $45 million guaranteed. What are your thoughts on this deal?
I really like the deal. I think a big part of it as well is that there are really 3 void years on it to relieve some of that stress about some of his knee injuries and his back injuries and ankle problems. But I love the deal. Having your 2 bookmarks for the next 4 years, if you really want to, is just really nice for Josh Allen and the offense.
Yes, and then the Bills take on the Miami Dolphins tomorrow night in Miami. It's a battle of 2 teams that are looking to win the AFC East. This should be a very good game. Going on to some injuries, Teron Johnson and Dwayne Smoot were already ruled out for the Bills as long as Javon Solomon is doubtful. And then for the Dolphins, running back Raheem Mostert's already ruled out. Devon Achane is game time decision, hasn't practiced all week. And then Jalen Waddle will be limited in this game with a concussion. Thomas, what are your thoughts on these injuries and how they will impact the game?
Well, I mean, it's huge. If you look at Miami, their offense is a run-heavy offense. They like to run the ball, especially against a team like Buffalo. That's our big weakness on the defense is our rush defense, as Caleb was saying earlier. Honestly, to see that Devon Achane is a game-time decision, likely not going to play in this game very much, and Raheem Mostert is out. I mean, realistically, the one thing Miami could do very well against us was run off play action, get Hill or Waddle open in space, and that's very dangerous for their offense. If they can't get a ground game going, then they're going to be forced to throw the ball with Tua a lot more, and that's going to make a lot of pressure onto Tagovailoa. And I don't think he's a quarterback that can handle that accurately. I think there's only a few in the league that can, maybe like a Burrow, a Herbert, an Allen, and a Mahomes. Not very many guys in the NFL that can handle the pressure like that. And of course, Tua not being listed in that category, I don't think that he's going to have a very good game. I think that's very favorable for Buffalo, and that's about it.
Yes, and then Michelle, I just wanted to ask you, what are some things you're looking forward to in this offense, real quick?
I'm looking forward to Keon Coleman because he had that really great catch. I think it was 51-yard catch. That was really great. That was his debut. I'm looking forward to him and James Cook and who Josh Allen leads towards in the next coming weeks.
And then Caleb, who are you looking forward to on the defensive side of the ball, real quick?
I'm really looking forward to Cam Lewis and the linebacking core and Dorian Williams and seeing how they step in for Matt Milano and Teron Johnson. It's a big, big responsibility to take over those 2 spots, which are likely the 2 most important spots in the Buffalo Bills defense. So I'm excited to see how Cam Lewis and Dorian Williams do and how they defend the middle of the field versus a very explosive football team.
All right, and then real quick, Thomas, what is your score prediction for tonight's game?
Tomorrow's game, and it's 28-17. I do think that the Buffalo Bills are going to win this football game. I think it's just something that the Bills do very well is beating the Miami Dolphins. It's death taxes and the Bills winning against Miami. So I do think Josh Allen has a great game and Buffalo gets it done.
Michelle, real quick, what do you think the score is going to be?
I think the score is going to be 26-20 Bills.
Caleb, what about you?
31-21, just another high-scoring matchup between Buffalo and Miami.
I have the Bills winning 31-24. We will go to commercial. When we come back, we have Colin to break down the rest of the NFL slate from week 1.
How was school today?
It was good.
Did you play volleyball?
Yes.
How's your serve coming? I think we'll work on it this weekend.
Amy's slumber party is this weekend.
Is your homework done?
No.
That was the deal we made. If you do...
Hi, Lauren. My name is Katie. We're going to take care of you, okay? Ready?
3.
Welcome back to Buffalo Sports Insider. We are now going to get into our NFL segment for the day. We'll start with a quick recap of week 1. Alex, do you want to start us off with Thursday Night Football?
Next game, I'm not in yet right now.
All right, we're going to start with London, Sunday Night Football between the Lions and the Packers.
Rams versus Lions. So in Detroit, it was definitely a tough fought game in Detroit with Matthew Stafford's second game back in Detroit. Also, a lot of tough injuries going on for the Rams. The Lions did go on to win this game 26-20. Matthew Stafford led the Rams offense throwing 34 for 49, 317 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. In my opinion, the Rams
game definitely needs to improve a little bit. Kyren Williams, he had 18 carries, 50 yards, 1 touchdown. Ronnie Rivers, he just had about 2 carries. I was definitely a little surprised not to see rookie running back Blake Corum get into the game, and he also has not played all preseason. Puka Nacua injury definitely in the first half played a big part. Cooper Kupp, definitely a big game. Him, Kobe Parkinson, Tyler Johnson with a decent performance with a 63-yard reception in the end of the third quarter. John Johnson also for the Rams. The interception that he had definitely was a momentum turnaround for the Rams. So you definitely wonder how the Rams defense can come back from losing Aaron Donald. And maybe one stop away from that defense, the whole game could have been changed. Jared Goff definitely did lead the Lions offense, throwing 18 for 28, 217 yards, 1 touchdown. He definitely looked pretty comfortable. Jameson Williams, great performance. The Lions team definitely looked like a strong team, and they showed that in overtime as well. And this was also a tough Rams team with a couple injuries going on. Maybe you see these teams meet up again in January.
Thank you, London. Alex, we'll throw it back to you now for Thursday Night Football between the Chiefs and the Ravens.
In this game,
It was the first game of the year. Both teams just kind of looked sloppy, but the Chiefs were able to come out victorious. I mean, they have the better quarterback, they have the better coaching. Usually the team with those two things win the game. I mean, Lamar did play a great game, 273 and a touchdown passing, 122 yards rushing. But as always, he struggled to make throws down the field, and that ultimately kind of halted their offense for most of this game. In the fourth quarter, though, he did start to hit some throws, so he did look better. But as everyone has seen, he missed Zay Flowers wide open in the end zone. So that was a miss. And then they just weren't able to get that touchdown to win the game. And then on the other side, you got Mahomes with 290 and a touchdown passing. Not really much on the ground, but they didn't really need much on the ground because they were able to throw the ball. I mean, you got Rashee Rice, 7 catches for 103 yards. Is very impressive. They scored 27 points, so they obviously did enough to win against a very stout Ravens defense that was number 1 in the league last year. The big storyline out of the Chiefs was Xavier Worthy with 2 touchdowns, but only on 3 touches. I mean, one of them was a busted coverage. So I think people need to relax their expectations on him a little bit because, again, he only had 2 catches, one of them being a busted coverage where the safety and corner were confused on what zone they were playing. And then the run play was nice, a nice 20-yard rushing touchdown. He darted through the defense, used that speed. That is going to be something that does help their offense, but he didn't really offer much as a true wide receiver. So that's where I think people comparing him to Tyreek Hill need to calm down a little bit.
And we had a rare Friday night game in Brazil between the Packers and the Eagles. The Eagles wound up on top 34-29. The story from that game mainly for the Eagles was Saquon Barkley and his debut in the green jerseys. He had 132 total yards and 3 touchdowns on his way to an NFC Offensive Player of the Week performance. For the Packers, the story is Jordan Love, who is reportedly going to miss 3 to 6 weeks with an MCL sprain. It's important to note that the Packers haven't placed Jordan Love on IR yet. If they did, that would mean he'd be out for a minimum of 4 weeks. So maybe some optimism in Green Bay that he doesn't miss as much time. In the meantime, it will be Malik Willis, the former Tennessee Titan, that will be starting for the Packers. Jayden Reed also had a big game for them as well with a rushing and a receiving touchdown. Spike, your Jets, not a great performance on Monday night. Walk us through that between them and the 49ers.
Just to look at the player-wise, some poor ball carrying by Breece Hall, something you don't hear often. He had Fred Warner come in out of nowhere and have them one of the most cleanest punches straight from the gut, right inside of the hands of Breece Hall. I mean, it's one of the textbook things from a linebacker that you hope to do. And again, it's Fred Warner. I mean, you got to hold on to that ball as tight as you possibly can. But other than that, the play calling was not there. And Nathaniel Hackett needs to draw up something more creative. 16 rushes for 54 yards from Breece Hall is something that is downright pathetic from a player of his caliber, but it's not all his fault. When it's 3rd and 10 and you're down by 19, 9 minutes left, and your offensive coordinator is calling power dive to the right, there's kind of a problem somewhere up in the booth. But other than that, Aaron Rodgers did look good. He was throwing some good passes. Unfortunately, there was the tip drill interception. You can't 100% blame him for that, but he did look very stiff in the pocket. Again, I know he's a 39-year-old quarterback coming off of an ACL tear, but you just can't win in the NFL nowadays without being mobile inside of that pocket. So there's just a lot of things to address, mainly on the play calling side and looking at what they can draw up against the Titans coming up this weekend on Sunday. But other than that, the defense did as much as they possibly could. They bent, they didn't break. There was a bunch of field goals, but eventually, if you don't score any touchdowns in that space of those field goals and getting the ball back and you lose time, it's not going to be a recipe for success.
And before we move on to our week 2 previews, I want to give a shout out to a past insider, Deshaun, one of our founding student members who has since graduated. So moving on to our week 2 previews now. Spike, why don't you start us off with Bucks Lions on Sunday?
This one's probably going to be one of the best games of the week, at least in my opinion. The Buccaneers went out and absolutely thrashed the Commanders 37-20. Baker Mayfield looked as comfortable and as poised as ever, going for over 340 yards and 4 touchdowns that game. The Lions also took care of business against the Rams in overtime, but it was definitely a much more tight-knit game than I thought it would be. But the Rams, again, they're a talented team dealing with some injuries right now, but they took care of business as much as they possibly could until overtime came around. I feel like this is going to be a gunslinging game, possibly. Jared Goff, again, played very well against the Rams and the Buccaneers with Baker Mayfield lighting it up, having Chris Godwin and Mike Evans out there doing exactly what they have done for the past couple of years with that organization. I believe it's going to be an electrifying game, maybe not a lot of defense, so sometimes that's great for the viewers, not so great for the teams. I just hope for it to be an entertaining game, as both of their games were last week, and it's hard to pick a winner here, but I might have to go with the reigning NFC Championship team that showed up there and did have those hopes taken away by the 49ers in the last year.
One of my favorite matchups this week is Rams-Cardinals. London, walk us through what you're looking for in that game.
Definitely going to be a matchup to watch. After both of these teams definitely just both came up short in week 1. Definitely going to be excited to watch how these defenses will put on. It's definitely going to be an exciting game from Cooper Kupp and Kyren Williams. Definitely want to see if and how Kyler Murray will get Marvin Harrison more involved in week 2.
Potentially the biggest matchup of the week is Bengals-Chiefs on Sunday at 4:25. Alex, are the Bengals going to keep this one interesting, or is it just Chiefs all the way here?
I think the Bengals keep this one interesting, but the real question is, will the Bengals be able to slow down what they have in years past, where they start out 0-2 and they look bad in the first couple games every single year? This year they have an early test against the Chiefs, so we'll really be able to see if week 1 is a slump or if this Chiefs or this Bengals team is just not as good as everyone thinks. I mean, the Chiefs are favored by 5 points, so Vegas doesn't really think it's going to be a close game either. But personally, I think just Joe Burrow, another week. Jamar Chase really hasn't practiced, and he's finally back in the building, finally practicing. I think that chemistry will get a little bit better, and I expect them to be able to keep it close. But ultimately, I'm going to go with the Chiefs, probably 27-23.
Thanks, Alex. We've got one more segment coming up for you here on Buffalo Sports Insider, so make sure to stay tuned after this.
You wouldn't do that. So why do you do this? Distracted driving kills an average of 9 people and injures over 1,000 every day in America. Put down your phone. Lives depend on it. Don't drive intoxicated. Don't drive intoxicated.
How was school today?
It was good.
Did you play volleyball?
Yes.
And how's your serve coming along?
Not so good.
I think we should work on it this weekend.
Mom, Amy's birthday bash slumber party is this weekend.
Is your homework done?
No.
That was the deal we made.
To our final segment of today's show. My name is Thomas Bailey. Alongside me, Antonio Calderon and Nathan Palmer. Hello, everybody. Before we hop into this last segment here, I want to shout out a special person in the chat today, Deshaun Francois, our BSI student creator. So hello, man. Been a long time, I know, but we're back at it. So we're going to hop right into the MLB segment here. In the AL, you have the Orioles and the Yankees. They are 83-62 and 83-63. So the Yankees hold a half-game lead in that division as they fight for the AL East. The other team will obviously fight for the AL wild card, and the AL East winner could potentially win the AL as a whole, which they'll be up against the Guardians, who are also in that mix with 83 wins and 62 losses. Moving into the wild card race, you have the Royals, who are 80-60 as they pulled away from the Minnesota Twins over the last week. 77-68 are the Minnesota Twins, so they have a 3-game lead over them. And then the final wild card spot would be up for grabs in that situation, because the Twins are in a 3-way battle with the Tigers and Red Sox, who are 74-71 and 73-72. So that's a big thing to talk about there. Over in the NL, you have a 2-team race for the conference between the Phillies and the Dodgers. The Phillies are 87-58. The Dodgers are 86-59. And we'll kind of see how that goes. And then you got the dogfight that is the wild card positions with the 82-64 Padres, the 81-64 Diamondbacks, and the Mets and Braves, who are tied with 79 wins and 66 losses. Moving into some of the recaps, though, the Mets losing 6-2 to the Blue Jays hurts their chances. The Diamondbacks beat the Rangers 6-0. The Braves beat the Nationals 12-0. Orioles beat the Red Sox 5-3. The Cubs beat the Dodgers with a 6-3 victory on the road. The Tigers beat the Rockies 11-0. The Royals beat the Yankees 5-0. Twins beat the Angels 10-5. Phillies beat the Rays 9-4. The Brewers beat the Giants 3-2. And the Padres beat the Mariners 7-3. So, guys, what are we feeling here for this one? As yes, let's go Mets. Deshaun, I see it in the chat. Let's go. But, guys, what is like the most important matchup in your eyes? We'll start with you, Nate.
I think the most important matchup was the Mets losing to the Jays yesterday. I mean, you got to take advantage of the Braves, who was faltering. They're injured. They're beat up right now. So I think this is a perfect opportunity for the Mets to solidify their spot. But, losing to the Blue Jays, you're giving the Braves new life.
Yeah, and Antonio, what about you?
I would have to go with the Orioles game beating the Red Sox. Big game for them. Yankees, their game to the Royals as well. Now only being up half a game against the Orioles in the division, every game's going to come down to something. Every game's going to matter. See which team can clinch that be on top of the AL East at the end.
Yeah, as that will conclude the MLB segment for today's show. We're going to hop into some WNBA here with Nate. The East is held by the New York Liberty, who are 30-6, and the West is the Minnesota Lynx. Reign of terror 27-9, as both teams are dominating their conferences. In the East, you have the Connecticut Sun, who are 26-10, and in the West, you have the Las Vegas Aces, who are 22-13, which are the second best teams in each conference. In the East, you have a bit of a wild card in the Indiana Fever, who are 19-17. They're 8-2 in their last 10, by the way, which is absolutely insane. Of course, Caitlin Clark has been on fire in those games as well. And then they're getting hot at the right time, which is just so important in the NBA or WNBA, any sport really. It's so important. And that's one thing that you can mention there. And then in the West, the Seattle Storm are 21-14, and they're right in the thick of the race as well. So, Nate, we're going to hop into some game recaps here. The Sun beat the Los Angeles Sparks 86-66 yesterday. The Liberty beat the Dallas Wings 105-91. The Minnesota Lynx would win against the Atlanta Dream 76-64. And which one of these matchups would you say is the most important with its result?
Believe it or not, I'm going with the Lynx versus the Atlanta Dream, because the Atlanta Dream was tied with the Chicago Sky, for the last final playoff spot in the WNBA playoffs. So that was a huge loss for them. The Sky, they just lost Angel Reese for the season. They're beat up as well. They're looking to, pack it up for the season, and the Dream are giving them life, kind of like how the Mets are doing with the Braves. So I think that was a big, impactful game on the way the playoffs might look out.
And how about an outlook on what you think could potentially be a finals matchup for the WNBA?
My sleeper pick, I'm going with the Aces versus the Indiana Fever. I think Caitlin Clark got those girls rolling. They're the hottest team in the league right now. And I do think that the Aces will get it together. I think this is the playoff mode that we've seen them in the last 3 or 4 games. I think that's the kind of team that we'll see moving forward. And I think they'll be back for the third finals appearance.
Awesome. So thank you, Nate, for your WNBA section. We're going to hop into some tennis now with the U.S. Open. Antonio, Jannik Sinner of Italy defeated Taylor Fritz of the United States in straight sets to win the U.S. Open finals in the men's bracket. What are your thoughts on that win for him?
I would have to say it was a big win for him. First Italian man to win the U.S. Open, second career Grand Slam title for Sinner. After Novak Djokovic and Carlos Alcaraz got upset earlier on in the tournament, it was his to lose.
Exactly.
For Fritz, it was a good tournament. No one really expected him to make the final. First American man to make a Grand Slam title since 2009 with Roddick. So even though it's disappointing that he lost, he still has a lot to be proud of.
Yeah, and in the women's side, Arina Sabalenka, she is out of Belarus. She defeated Jessica Pegula, who's also from the United States, in straight sets to win her first U.S. Open in her life, which is awesome for her. What are your thoughts on this one as America drops both in the finals?
Was very disappointed to see Pagula lose. You know, of course, wanting to see at least one of the Americans take home a title. But you can't help but be happy for Sabalenka. Last year, she lost in a very disappointing fashion to Coco Gauff. So her being able to come back the very next year and reclaim the title that she lost last year and come win it this year means a lot to her, and you got to be happy for that.
Yeah, exactly. So that will conclude our show here today, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning into Buffalo Sports Insider, the most electrifying sports show in the 716. I'm Thomas Bailey alongside Nathan Palmer and Antonio Calderon, and we'll see you guys next time on Buffalo Sports Insider.